As Elon Musk grants amnesty to most banned accounts, some media liberals are just plain crusading against him. An MSNBC reporter even urging viewers not to use Twitter.
I just want to stress to people, this is a website, just a website. It's optional. You don't have to go there. There's other places to get news. I have to go there, but you guys don't have to.
This kind of billionaire class is inconsistent with democracy as we live it. Elon Musk is a sort of adolescent in his 50s.
Musk is pushing back hard, tweeting, "It is shocking how many journalists viciously attack free speech, but somehow think they're the good guys." Joining us now to offer their views, Kristen Hahn, a Democratic strategist, and Meghan McCain, columnist for thedailymail.com. Meghan, what do you make of some of these media liberals pounding him? Stay away from Twitter, and the billionaires have no right to exist, and this thing will die any minute.
Well, I'm addicted to Twitter, and I've been on since 2009. And I think if you work in media or interested in news, it's a really powerful and useful space. There's no doubt that a lot of people have been shadow banned on the right, and people have had their accounts taken away for innocuous things like, saying my personal favorite is learn to code, which was a criticism of coal miners and people who had lost their blue collar and hardworking jobs. And then the answer was learn to code from the left. A lot of accounts got banned for things like that. So I think it's interesting when the power switches to the other side. Elon Musk has made it very clear he's an advocate for free speech, and he's an advocate for conservatives to come back on Twitter. And I think they kind of sound like babies, like they're throwing a little tantrum because the power has shifted.
Kristen, Musk is also going after the big papers. He's tweeted who he thinks have treated him unfairly. How tragic how far the New York Times has fallen. Basically just boring as F. Far left brainwashing. And of the Washington Post and owner Jeff Bezos, inmates are running the asylum at Wash Post while Jeff parties in his hot tub. Does that go too far?
I mean, the inmates running the asylum, that's pretty rich coming from Elon Musk and what he's been doing with Twitter. I mean, I don't disagree that, I think they kind of do sound like babies, but, the Washington Post, this makes no sense to me.
It's been very chaotic since he's taken over, I will say that.
Well, that is true, and he's trying to get everything done at once. But with Musk just announcing, based on a Twitter poll, that he'll restore most of these suspended accounts that haven't either broken the law or engaged in egregious spam, some of these people may have posted really ugly stuff. What's been your experience as a major presence on Twitter? Yeah,
so what's interesting is, I'm a conservative woman on Twitter, and I had an experience that I shared with you very publicly a few years ago, where a picture of me crying in a emotional way, someone had doctored a Glock gun at my head, and it went viral. It was all over Twitter, and my husband and our media friends were all asking for it to be taken down and to be censored. It did not get taken down, and it got so bad to the point that Jack Dorsey actually ended up calling me and apologizing for what had happened. So I find it interesting that if you had tweeted learn to code, you'd be banned immediately. Yeah. And then if there's a clearly violent inducing picture, or disturbing at the very least, that wouldn't get taken down. So I think that Elon Musk needs to be very explicit about what is and isn't standards on this website, because it's been very confusing for many people for many years. And again, I've been on since 2009. Right. So I would like a very explicit understanding of what it means for people on the left and the right, what is and isn't allowed on this platform. So despite the apology by Twitter founder Jack Dorsey, you feel like if you were a liberal and not a conservative, there's no way they leave off a picture where you got a gun pointed to your head. That is despicable. I think about, again, I think anyone, having a picture like that should be taken down immediately. Of course, regardless of violence. But I think that there was obviously a double standard for a very long time, and there was a double standard for who was censored and who wasn't. The Ayatollah Khomeini still has a Twitter account and is allowed to tweet, obviously disgusting, horrific things, and then you have random journalists from around the country being banned for things that are pretty innocuous. By the way, there won't be any crying here. No, not today. Look, President Musk has made mistakes. He had to postpone his verification subscription service after a botch rollout where there was a fake LeBron James, a fake Jesus Christ, and others to be verified. But what about his point that journalists seem to him to be against free speech because they want to suppress what people on the right say? They're not against free speech. The journalists that I work with, in D.C. and, at the Washington Post, at the New York Times, they're the best at what they do. So I think I have a little bit more respect for your profession. You're asking these questions of the industry yourself. But, with Twitter, it's a difficult scenario, right? And you're talking about, yes, we want to make sure that nothing like that ever happens to anybody on Twitter.
But Elon Musk is running it in such a way that there are whole teams of people that are leaving that are supposed to be, that are supposed to have that role at Twitter.
Well, let me turn now to what's gotten a huge amount of media coverage, which is a dinner at Mar-a-Lago where Kanye West came to visit Donald Trump and brought with him the notorious anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. Let's play a soundbite of Kanye talking about that dinner and his estranged wife.
How he didn't do it for Kim, but he did it for me. But then he goes on to say that Kim is a you can tell her I said that. And I was thinking, like, that's the mother of my children.
So, Megyn, Trump meets with Kanye West, who spent weeks spewing anti-Semitic garbage, and also dining with Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes. And he put out 3 statements saying, well, he didn't know Fuentes was coming, which may be true, and he didn't know who Fuentes was, which may be true, but not making any kind of statement about the abhorrent views of this guy.
Well, first and foremost, you shouldn't be meeting with Kanye West, period, after the virulent anti-Semitic bile he's been, saying and tweeting and doing for weeks on end. We've all, unfortunately, had a front row seat to watching this kind of extremely dangerous bile at a time where anti-Semitic hate crimes are at a historic high.
Right, and so never backing off.
Never backing off. And first and foremost, Trump should just say, no, I'm not meeting with Kanye West because I don't want to be associated with anti-Semites. And then to include one of the most dangerous, notorious white supremacists, Holocaust deniers, also anti-Semites, and then to have dinner with them. I just don't understand. Howie, if you and Kristen invited me to dinner and said, I'm inviting X person and I don't know who they are, and it's a professional dinner, I'm going to find out who they are, and I'm not running for president of the United States. So a lot of people are freaking out. There's a bunch of reports about anonymous people from Trump land that are really seeing what a big error this is, how horrific this is. I think it's just another example of why he is completely unfit to run for president right now.
Well, it's the week after he announced, and obviously he's getting a lot of bad press. And yes, some of his advisors seem upset. Kristen, what the press is saying is that even if he didn't know anything about Fuentes, he didn't say anything about his views. And most Republicans, not Chris Christie and others who want to run against him, have been silent on this.
I mean, he said, this guy gets me. Now, I don't understand, why you would announce you're running for president and then invite somebody to dinner like Kanye West and then not know who else you're having.
Trump said he was trying to help him with his business problems.
Okay, fine. And he said that a couple days later, right? So I just think it makes no sense to take a meeting, something like that. You should know who that is. And just the judgment there is so lacking.
So very briefly, with the media being highly critical of this, you think that is deserved?
I think it's definitely deserved.
Yeah, well, the interesting that Trump put out several statements about this. He doesn't probably do this, but his staff could Google and find out more about Fuentes. And by the way, ironically, Fuentes in his own video says he told Trump that he was his hero, but it's time to move on, and he's backing Ron DeSantis. Stick around after the break. Kari Lake trying to overturn her loss in the Arizona governor's race, and CBS takes a victory lap for authenticating Hunter Biden's laptop 2 years later. Kari Lake, the MAGA Republican who lost a close race for Arizona governor, is now challenging the outcome and suggesting there was fraud, just as she backs Donald Trump's claims of a rigged election in 2020.
They said we were crazy. Well, it turns out we were right. On Election Day, nearly half of all polling locations had problems. Rest assured, I have assembled the best and brightest legal team, and we are exploring every avenue to correct the many wrongs that have been done.
Megyn, Arizona is your home state. You've denounced Kari Lake, and you've drawn some flack for making it too personal.
I mean, Howie, she made it so personal first. She has attacked my mother, my brother, my dad, me, and made it wildly personal things I don't want to repeat on your show because it's so gross. And look, I would really love for anyone to run for office as a Republican and not just absolutely crap all over my family. And the way to do it, they keep losing. My dad is the last Republican to win a general election on a national level in Arizona, and Arizona's now blue. We have 2 Democrat senators and a Democrat governor. And
what's your reaction to to her challenge.
Well, it's so funny because we were talking backstage that this election has been such a referendum on conspiracy theories and people trafficking in conspiracy theories, and election denying is a wholehearted rejection by Republicans and by the Republican Party. And I think it's a completely losing path for Republicans going forward into the general.
Well, I mean, look, Carrie Lake is entitled to make a legal challenge, but Kristen, she told reporters she'd be their worst freaking nightmare, but then she lost. But the media are fascinated by her, and after she visited Mar-a-Lago, they're actually talking her up as a possible running mate for Donald Trump.
I mean, I think, she can go to Mar-a-Lago, she can meet with Trump, just like Kanye did. But the fact of the matter is, if you look at the midterms, you look at a lot of these House races, even Senate races, she's an outlier this time. People who lost were acknowledging defeat, and it's good. It's a healthy thing for our democracy.
Right.
What she's doing is not healthy for our democracy, and she deserves to be covered.
Well, she lost by 20,000 votes, so maybe she thinks there's a way to change that.
Sure, but the rhetoric matters, right? I mean, we have recounts all the time. You get within a certain number of votes. We're having a runoff in Georgia. We're having recounts in California. That's what you do. It's how you talk about it. It's how it really undermines our democracy.
Look, there was a Saturday Night Live sketch that was where her character was saying, if I win, democracy is amazing, and if I lose, the election was stolen. Before the election, it was something people thought she would do if she ended up losing. So I'm certainly not surprised. And again, if she has evidence,
All right.
go ahead and show us. But that doesn't seem to be it.
Just the fact that she was parodied on SNL shows what a national figure Carrie Lake has become. All right, CBS News and the Hunter Biden laptop. Let's roll it.
Data from a laptop reported to belong to Biden could be crucial to the investigatory process. And we commissioned an independent forensic review to determine its authenticity.
CBS determines its authenticity. And this is not only 2 years after the New York Post said the laptop was real and most of the mainstream media scoffed, but months after the New York Times and the Washington Post said they had authenticated the laptop, and they were a year and a half late.
Yeah, my employer had the laptop authenticated 2.5 years ago, I believe, by a forensics team, the Daily Mail, the forensics team. I thought this was so strange when I saw this clip on Twitter because they're giving themselves a victory lap. Like, we've authenticated it here at CBS, and as you said, after all of mainstream media has, and we're about to have probably an investigation, a public investigation.
At the time, many mainstream outlets said it was Russian disinformation. That was untrue. The old Twitter regime suppressed the story. Isn't CBS a little late to the game here?
I think they're a little late to the game. I also think that, there is a lot of truth to, the headlines that Elon Musk, tweeted out saying the New York Times is wrong and, brainwashing liberals. Yeah, I think that's also a little out of control.
So you think, what about this? That CBS shouldn't be patting itself on the back?
I mean, I think that it's a little embarrassing that they're patting themselves on the back for something that the Wall Street Journal, and everybody else had authenticated a while back.
They look like idiots. I mean, no offense to CBS in the morning, but again, it's like years after.
Right.
It's wildly, across the board accepted as truth. I think, again, you'd have to be a conspiracy theorist not to think the laptop is real. And I think the real question is, why was there such hesitation to cover this during the election?
Meghan McCain, Kristen Hahn, thanks.